afternoon, everybody. 'Tis I, Captain Logan. Welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. Today, I'm going to be answering questions about everything DC. DC Universe, and not necessarily just DC Extended Universe, but anything that falls under that category. We can talk about comic book stuff. We can talk about TV stuff. We can talk about movie stuff. I want to... I want to mention that I have not caught up on CW TV stuff, unfortunately. So any questions about the last season of Supergirl, which I only saw the first couple episodes of, or Arrow, or Flash, or Legends, I'm not caught up with that stuff. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to add anything to any sort of discussion on those things. Lost interest a long time ago and have not had the time nor really felt the need to prioritize those shows. Honestly, I don't know a lot of people who are even still watching those shows. I know they seem to be doing well enough to stay on, at least for the CW, and occasionally I see people online talk about them, but nobody I know seems to still be watching that. There are some Geeflution viewers here and there, but nobody I know real well personally still watching that show. Hi, folks. It's good to see you. Lots of folks in the comments already. Got Lone Wolf Jedi of Gotham there. Cinematographic. Mario 500 now. Mr. Snowblack 666. That is a new name. And sometimes new names are people that we know, but that have just changed their names. So I don't know. That might be somebody that we know. Akos Brenner. Blue Dragon 5 is here. Spartan Knight 67. Excited to be here, he says, because he hasn't made one of these. What's up, everybody? Thanks a bunch for hanging out with me. I have been doing live broadcasts this week already. Did a little bit of video game gameplay the first couple of days of this week just to test out the PS4's capability with that, and I was really, really impressed with it. It's so easy. You just press a button and you're broadcasting. It's wonderful. I mean, you have to put in your title of your video and stuff, but it's just a button, and then you go in there, and it's great. You just hook up a microphone. Really simple. So easy to be lazy and look amazing now. You know, you're in 1080p and you didn't really do anything to make it look good, you know, and I'm just on a microphone, so I don't have to worry about lighting or anything. It's just fabulous. So you might start seeing more gameplay here on the channel. We did a little bit of Lego Dimensions yesterday as well, just me and Jason hanging out. We were like, we're doing gameplay anyway, we might as well. So if there are PS4 games or games available on the PS4 that anybody is interested in seeing some playthrough for, let us know, and we might consider doing that, or I might consider doing it on my own. I'm thinking about doing some of that for Detroit Become Human, regardless of that being really, really rated R. I'd have to put in a little bit of a disclaimer for people. This is not for your children. But anyway, so those are fun to do. So anyway, hi Duke. I see Duke there in the comments. Part of the reason that I picked DC today, besides the fact that we did an MCU show a few weeks ago, and people had been asking for it, is I wanted to make a big announcement today related to something DC-ish. A few weeks ago, I announced, this will be the first time I've talked about this anyplace. A few weeks ago, I announced that Counting Crypto Freaks was kaput, that I was no longer doing that show because of copyright issues and because so I wasn't able to use stills anymore, and people being able to see it, because not only could I not monetize it, but sometimes they were getting blocked and people just couldn't even watch them. And then also just there has not been enough time in the day to keep up with that. It took me 4 years or more to finish season, and I didn't even finish season 2, but to do as much as season 2 as I did. And so I said, yeah, I will eventually try to get to season overviews of Smallville. And I still probably, I mean, I would still like to write about Smallville on Rewind down the road, but I am bringing Counting Crypto Freaks back in a different format. And it's not ideal. It's not exactly what I want to be doing, but I've already shot a couple, and they're super fun to make, and I'm going to be able to get through them a lot faster. So people who really want to see Counting Crypto Freaks, you're going to get to continue that show with me episode to episode through commentaries. I'm going to do a very bat chat kind of thing with it, in that it's just going to be me watching the show and talking over it, off the cuff, more relaxed than Counting Crypto Freaks was. But it's not going to have a co-host. It is going to be just me and that show. And I've already shot 3 of them. In fact, I just recorded another one before I started this show, and really excited about it. So I'm going to start putting those out regularly again, and I hope that's a compromise that a lot of Counting Crypto Freaks fans, people that like that show, can get behind. But that's what I'm doing with it. So and I'm still keeping the count going. It will still be Counting Crypto Freaks. We will still ask Jarrell some questions for when we get to heaven and all that kind of stuff. And I'm keeping the tone as close to what it was as I can off the cuff. So anyway, that is what's going on with Counting Crypto Freaks. That is returning, and I will have the first new episode of that up tomorrow. I want to thank Mr. Robert Emmett for helping me out with the show today. He was with us last week, taking your comments and sending them to me so that I don't have to stop everything constantly in order to look through the comments and get that. I like doing the show with a moderator. It's much smoother. And I last week didn't have Danny Nixon, and Danny is off doing something else today as well. Wasn't able to make it. So Robert Emmett volunteered once again. Really nice of him. I sure appreciate it. And we're going to start off with a Robert Emmett question. He sent me one just before the show started, and here's what he says. We're going to begin with the DC stuff, and all DC today. I may take a few other kinds of questions at the end of the show if there are things people really want to talk about, maybe like for the last 10 minutes. But the last couple theme shows, I've mixed in other things besides the big topic. This is a sprawling enough topic. I kind of want to just handle DC things today. So once again, Batman, Superman, movies, television, old and new, just understanding that I'm not caught up on the CW shows. So this is not a chance to grill me and see how much I know about everything currently happening, because I will fail that test. But I will talk about the things that I can talk about. Okay, we begin with, like I said, Robert Emmett's question. I'm really getting into banned C-list DC superheroes such as, I don't know what he means by banned C-list, but C-list DC superheroes such as Mon-El, Elongated Man, Plastic Man, Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, and my two new favorites, Mr. Miracle and Big Barda. What lower tier DC heroes do you have a soft spot for, and what would you like done with them to boost their profile, like what the CW has done for Mon-El and Elongated Man on TV, or Tom King has done for Mr. Miracle in comics? These questions are getting harder and harder for me to answer because we keep using so many of these minor characters, and they've gotten so not minor anymore. I guess the big ones for me, I'm going to sound like a broken record, are like Death of Superman type characters and Cassandra Cain. So like I would like to see a live action Cassandra Cain who doesn't talk. I think that would be so cool. It's not a thing that we've tried yet, and I don't think she's ever appeared in live action. You know, we've had like 15 different versions of Black Canary now, but still no Cassandra Cain. I don't think we've done Spoiler yet in live action. I think that would be really cool as well. I guess just former Batgirls. I just want former Batgirls. I want Birds of Prey to come back, and I know that's supposed to be a movie. Apparently, maybe, unless they keep waffling back and forth. Is it Birds of Prey? Is it another Suicide Squad or not Suicide Squad? I don't know. I can't keep up with all that stuff. There was I guess it was a Batgirl movie and there was Birds of Prey, or maybe it was both. I don't even know now. But I would like to see another Birds of Prey TV show, and I guess Huntress is a big one for me. Also, so I guess they're just, mostly female DC characters that we're not doing a lot with, I guess, is my answer for that. A lot of people go to the Question all the time. I think that's a character we could do some really cool things with that we haven't yet. There are some characters that have shown up in Arrow that I wasn't super impressed with the way we used them, like Vigilante. I think Vigilante has a cool enough suit in the comics that, his suit was okay in Arrow and it still had the V thing, but it would be cooler to see it translated a little bit more directly. I think that he could even maybe get his own series or something. I think that would be kind of neat. And then, like I said, Death of Superman characters, I want Steel to show up. Jason asked me when we were still watching Supergirl regularly if or I guess he and I actually were just having a conversation about this the other day about Steel, because I was telling him about that as I was working on my top 10 properties that should be rebooted, and Steel made that list. He was like, Dad, is that the guy that Jimmy Olsen is in Supergirl? Because I can totally see why he thought that, right? Because he's a black guy with a big steel, with a big, suit of armor. And no, that's not him. But I thought that also. It was almost like we merged Steel with the Guardian, and that they really just took that name, right? Guardian. That doesn't really have a lot to do with Guardian. But anyway, so those are a few. Those are some things. Yeah. Oh, Mattboy52, favorite Superman suit. I I don't know if he's asking me that directly or not, but I just noticed that in the comments, and I like that. I kind of want to go to that. I'm all about the classic Christopher Reeve suit, and I like. There's some others that I like a lot also. I'm a big sucker for the black Superman suit in Death of Superman. It's really sleek. I love it. I like the connotations to that too. That. The kind of ambiguity when Superman is wearing black, it can be kind of a fun thing to play with, symbolically. But I also really like the suit from Earth One, JMS's suit. I think that's a really cool one too. And but movie wise, I think still Christopher Reeves is my favorite. And I also like the animated series suit also. I mean, it's just the real traditional suit, but just the way that looks rendered in that animation, I like a lot. I'm going off book. I'm just answering things that I'm seeing because that was a question I really wanted to answer. Okay, Blue Dragon 5, Cap, where do you think we go with Batman after marrying off the Catwoman? Well, that's the big $10,000 question, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, there's I think wisdom in. This would be a betting pool where it would be really hard to tell which odds to go, or what even the odds are, and which way to go, right? So I could see someone saying, well, that's going to only end in tears. That's going to be a big tragic thing. He's only going to be with her for like a year, and then they're going to maybe kill Catwoman or find some horrible way to break them up or something. And I've been in arguments with people about whether or not Tom King sees Batman and Catwoman as soulmates. And there's evidence going both ways on it. And as Eric and I go through that and review more of it, we'll talk about that. I think Tom King is the kind of guy that, like Joss Whedon, is likely to make that as tragic as humanly possible. He has made me love them together so much, and especially when he put them together as like the double date power couple thing with Lois and Superman. He's making me love them too much for that to stick. Somebody else asked if Martin Guerrero, will that Batman Catwoman thing stick, and if it does, will we see a main universe Helena Wayne? The second part of that, I don't think so, because we don't let time pass enough for a thing like that to happen in regular mainstream DC continuity, right? If Helena Wayne is born, she will be a baby for like a decade. The only way you get a kid is if they come from cloning, like Damian Wayne, or if they come from another universe, like John Kent. We're not going to see a baby be born and grow up unless they go into a vortex and come back because the time, and be aged because time moved at a different rate there, like Connor and Angel. There are a lot of kind of tropes and plot devices that we use in order to age a kid so that a character that we like can have a kid, and we can see them have to deal with parenting without actually taking the time to see them grow up, just because there's not, sometimes on TV, there's not enough seasons, and in comic books, it's like the opposite of dog years, where like 1 year in comics equals like a month, maybe, or like 2 weeks or something. So that's my answer to that. As far as just generically, broadly, where do we go with Batman after he marries Catwoman? I have no idea. I would assume that they'll be partners a lot more often on missions and things, as they have been lately. And one thing I guess I do kind of wonder is if we ever try to introduce another Robin into that dynamic, given the Duke thing. And I've not read the last few issues, so I don't know really where we're at with Duke right now, but we haven't had a Robin in a while. And I don't know if we'll finally add that, or if DC has kind of smartly realized how big of an audience there is, how big of a fan base there is just for Robin by himself. Batman no longer needs Robin, and Robin doesn't need Batman anymore. And I wonder if we'll add that back into the dynamic at any point. But that's my answer to that. Jason, my son, wants to know if I like a DC superhero better than Batman. No, I don't. Batman is of course my guy. Superman is a really, really, really close second, and I think that in a lot of ways Superman is more important for the culture and is more relevant and kind of matters more. I mean, he's the guy that we should be looking up to, but then Batman is the guy that we can to some degree relate to in being a flawed human being. And of course Superman can be flawed as well and should be, but Batman being a guy who had this horrible tragedy happen to him and has to keep trying to be the pinnacle of human existence and do the right thing and help people without losing himself. Yeah, that's really important also. But I think with political climate and stuff, I think it's really important to have a character like Superman who has all this power and doesn't use it, isn't corrupted by it, doesn't use it for the wrong ends. And I guess you could say that Batman can have that as well with wealth, and where you have the metaphor for wealth, and then you just have straight up wealth. But anyway, I ran off with myself, and this is not the question you were asking. Superman is a close second, but whenever anybody asks me, are you a DC fan or a Marvel fan, my answer remains Batman. Cinematographic. Hey, Captain Logan, Taron Egerton or Edgerton, I'm honestly not sure how to pronounce his name. People like to correct me all the time on name pronunciations. As Nightwing with a mask that covers his nose. Yes, no, maybe, and if so, why? I don't have an opinion on this. I honestly don't write off without boring everyone looking up things on my phone, even know who that actor is right away. So if that's someone that I do know and I just don't realize it because I don't recognize the name, let me know. But I don't have an opinion on that. Right off. And as I always say, I'm not great with the fan casting thing. But as far as having, I don't know, a Nightwing mask that covers the nose, I don't know. I would much rather prefer just a straight up regular Nightwing costume. Something that's well, I mean, what Titans is doing looks great, but oh, okay, Kingsman, yeah, sure, why not? Like I said, I'm not a big fan of the fan casting thing. I don't get real excited about that, but I don't guess that would be a terrible choice. Blue Dragon 5. Cap, what are your thoughts on the Booster Gold arc in the Tom King Batman comic? I'm not caught up. I haven't read it yet. I've got them. I'm caught up to, I think, a couple issues before that. I am kind of tired of seeing Booster Gold because I've never really cared for that character that much, and he was just in Action Comics not too long ago, and that arc was really not great, I have to say. And so I was not excited to see him there, but I'm sure Tom King will turn me around on him because Tom King is wonderful. And maybe it is cool that he's immediately there following my not really caring for him in that Action arc. So anyway, I'm going to try to catch up on Batman stuff soon with reviews. Eric and I reviewed the first 3 arcs all at the same time. We did the I Am arcs, the kind of trilogy, and so we'll probably at some point in the not too distant future try to cover a bunch more of that. So I'm not reviewing a lot of comics brand new right now. I like to take the time to really sink my teeth into a story arc, and Eric and I don't have really time with all the other stuff that we're reviewing to do more than one arc at a time together, or at least one featured subject, whatever it is. So sometimes it's one arc, sometimes it's multiple arcs, if it makes sense to do it that way. But a couple times a month, we're doing that. So the next thing Eric and I are covering is Frank Miller's Ronin. We're going to be doing that this week, and I haven't read this yet. So I'm really excited to finally sink my teeth into that. This is a really important work. This is the reason Samurai Jack happens. This is a lot of the reason that Ninja Turtles happens, and we've been covering the Eastman and Laird stuff with that. So I'm glad that I'm finally going to be reading that. And then after that, we're going to get back to some series that we've been working on. So we're going to go back to the Superman Origins, and we're going to try to get back to Tom King's Batman 2. And we're talking about doing IDW Ninja Turtles not too long from now, although we've been real Ninja Turtles heavy lately. So we may take a little bit of a break from that before we get there and do some other things. But anyway, Kellen O'Rourke. Cap, do you want to see Darkseid portrayed in the DCU? I mean, I would like to see Darkseid in a DC movie. I'm real on the fence and weird about about that continuity right now, because any way you slice it, when and if that continuity gets great, there are just things that we're going to have to ignore. And somebody left a comment somewhere yesterday and suggested to me that, because I made that case, I guess it was on the top 10 movies I want to see or properties I want to see rebooted video, where a Superhero Rewind is somebody there. I suggested that very idea that we need to that we're going to have to ignore stuff moving forward, and wouldn't it kind of be better if we just straight up rebooted Superman? And somebody suggested, and I mean, I'm of two minds about that, because again, I do really want to see I do really want to see that version, get better, because I like Cavill, but and I just think it's unfair to him that he hasn't really gotten to play Superman. And somebody suggested, well, Justice League already is sort of doing that, like ignoring things and giving us real Superman. Yeah, sort of. I mean, people are talking about him like he's real Superman, but it still took the secret weapon of Lois Lane to bring him back to reality, and that is bringing us right back to all the things I don't like about that character. The long and short of it is, and I don't know how much of that was Snyder and how much of that was Joss Whedon, and what a strange world we live in, where those two people kind of 50-50 made a movie, but not together. Really strange. The notion that we have already fixed it and that we just need to ignore all the stuff we don't like from before is really frustrating to me, and I don't trust it yet. I don't trust that we're going to be consistent about the continuity. I don't trust that there's a plan for the continuity, and I don't care about the continuity, honestly, at the moment. And so as far as Darkseid in straight up DCEU, I don't care. Darkseid in a like fourth world movie in doing some big thing with Apocalypse. Yes, absolutely. I would love to see that, and it would be kind of neat to contrast him with Marvel's Thanos and see how exactly they handle him, and if they reinvent Darkseid like we kind of did with Thanos, or if they use him, precisely the way he is in the comics, and let him just be straight up evil. The thing is, Thanos is more interesting and more fun in the comics than Darkseid is. He tends to just be a real two-dimensional I am God, everyone worship me, the end kind of villain, and he can be really interesting, but he very often isn't. And I would be interested to see taking him kind of pure off the page and seeing how he if he's made to be anything anybody is interested in. Especially because at this point, you bring Darkseid to the screen, and it's going to look to people like a knockoff of Thanos, people that aren't familiar with the comics. So you got to be really careful and have a real vision for that character, I think. Lone Wolf Jedi of Gotham. Jared Leto Joker movie, apparently. Oh boy, yeah, we'll be talking about that on the Omnibus. You guys have heard me say this 1,000 times. I'm sure you're really tired of my saying it, but I'm going to do it again. For the love of God, DC, stop announcing things. Just stop it. I don't think that movie is going to get made. I really don't. Maybe it does. I don't think all of them happen. I don't think the Harley Quinn and Joker movie and the Joker by himself, that's not the origin movie, that doesn't have to do with Jared Leto, but this thing, the Jared Leto Joker movie, happens, and then like also more Suicide Squad, and just I don't think all of that stuff is going to happen. I think Warner is, again, I've said this before, is just going to keep looking at the returns and the reactions every time a movie comes out. They're going to keep moving things around and messing with stuff. And I have to take every announcement with a grain of salt. And I'm really, really tired of talking about it. Stop announcing stuff. I can't keep up with it all. I have no idea what all they're actually working on. It just drives me nuts. That's got to hurt consumer confidence to some degree, because it feels like crying wolf a little bit. And it's not, I mean, it doesn't hurt it to the point where if the movie is great or they advertise it right, it won't make money, because not everybody keeps up with things like we do. But good Lord, that's so obnoxious. And why would you? And that seems also like really counterintuitive to me, right? That you would, at the same time as your that you have greenlit and in development, because this one I'm sure will happen, the Joker origin movie. You're gonna have that, and you're also gonna announce this other out of that continuity in DCEU continuity Joker movie. Are Are people going to be confused, or is anybody going to care? Does it look like oversaturation? Any way you slice it, it seems like a really weird move. Maybe we should develop some things and not announce them at all until they're a little bit developed. And I don't know, maybe it's difficult to keep the cat in the bag, but I don't know how often these things are leaked and how often it's actually CW or the Warner Brothers. Did I say CW earlier? I shouldn't have said that if I did. How often it's just Warner Brothers going, we're making another movie. We're going to do a Joker movie. And we're going to do a Jimmy Olsen origin movie. You know the Jimmy Olsen that died in Man of Steel, in BVS? Yeah, we're going to give him his own movie. Everybody's upset that he died. We'll give him his own movie. That didn't get announced, but I would not be surprised if it did. Scott McCall gives me a $5 super chat. Thanks a bunch, buddy. Sure appreciate it. And I want to remind everybody that the super chat is open. And if you... is open, and if you want to make sure that I answer your question, you can support the channel, help us out with the super chat, and I will make sure to get right to it. Scott McCall, if we ever get Green Arrow in a feature film, who would you like to see play him? And with a $5 super chat, somebody asked me to do the fan casting thing again. I don't know. I think it would be really cool to see the Green Arrow that's more like the Dark Knight Returns version, or I guess the what is it? Is it Strikes Again where he first shows up, or is he at the end of Dark Knight Returns? I'm forgetting now. Suddenly I'm having a brain freeze with that. Anyway, I think it would be really cool to see some older actor play him, and I might have said like Russell Crowe before Russell Crowe played Jor-El, just because he's been Robin Hood in a not great Robin Hood movie, but I think he'd be really cool for the armless or robot armed Green Arrow. A lot of those characters lately. Deadpool felt the need to make fun of that in Deadpool 2, the Winter Soldier arm with Cable. But I don't know, but people throw out names. Anybody you think that would be really good for a Green Arrow on screen? Nobody's immediately jumping out at me. Man, I suck at this fan casting thing, and I don't keep up with current actors as well as I probably ought to. I'm thinking back to other things that I've seen recently. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to give that some thought. Ewan McGregor's not a bad choice. Jedi of Gotham just mentioned. Yeah, no, that's not bad. That'd be cool. And I would like to see him play a superhero. Certainly. Let's see. What else should we talk about? Blue Dragon 5. Another super chat. Game Station 3, $2 super chat. Thanks a bunch. Do you think the DCEU can be saved? How? Yeah, if you played the Flashpoint thing right, that could maybe be the way to do it, I guess. What I suggested in the Superhero Rewind I just posted is put out more movies that are ambiguous about their continuities, and then do a crisis and bring them all together. I think we should abandon DCEU at this point, and let the movies that fit into it. It just doesn't matter that they fit there. It will be confusing to people for a while, but I don't think continuity is as important as great stories. And I think we really need to get away from this obsession with building a story over several movies, especially if there is no real plan, and if you have a lot of different directors doing their own things and not really talking to each other, or with Snyder, you had a director that just had a really weird vision and didn't seem to know exactly what he was doing. So anyway, we're gonna, if you have somebody, and I mean, Warner's is trying to do this with is Jeff Johns still running these? See, like, I can't even keep up with everything that's going on anymore. Warner's is trying to have someone at the head that's putting everything together and keep things moving forward, right? So ultimately, we might get to a place where we actually do have a plan. But at the moment, we don't, and all the things that have been announced have mostly been either out of continuity things or ambiguously in continuity DCEU, and it doesn't really matter. Daniel Davis just said to Madman, "Don't be ridiculous. It can be saved." Yeah, I think it can. I think for it to make sense, ultimately, you're going to need something like a Flashpoint or a Crisis. If we don't care about that, if we want to just ignore all the stuff that doesn't work, and at a certain point, they're just smarter and they work moving forward, I can live with that. It's not it's not what I want. But as I said, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. It is more important that the stories are good than that even the continuity makes sense. But I will. But then the problem is I'll go crazy if you have really good stories, but they're built on character motivations that don't mesh with things we've had before. So characters staying consistent in stories that are told over several movies is important. That's where continuity does really matter. You know, as far as kind of the X-Men thing of like, I'm not as weird as it is, I'm not as annoyed about like certain characters, you know, couldn't be the age they are in certain movies if we've never done when we use them there, if we've never done anything with them anyway, and now they're interesting, for example. But if you have characters who we know things about them, and then suddenly we change them for the sake of making this other story work, if we've abandoned that, and like with Logan, right? Logan stands on its own. It's totally its own thing, even though it's building on the first two X-Men movies. It's sort of like I'm trying to think of a good example. It's sort of like Godzilla, I guess, where you have movies that will I'll get to the super chats in a minute, guys. Where you'll have movies that will go back to just the first movie, but they ignore everything else. There's a lot of franchises that do that. You know, Superman Returns kind of did that. It just looked at the first two Superman movies and nothing else. If you do that with I kind of lost my train of thought, but if I know where I guess the whole point I'm trying to make is if I know where I stand with a thing, it's better, even though it would be nicer for the continuity to completely make sense. Yeah, you can save it. I don't know how much I need it to be saved. I kind of rather just right now some good movies get made and then eventually pull a continuity together. It's going to be a compromise any way you slice it. It's not going to be ideal. So anyway, I lost my train of thought there. I don't remember exactly where I was going with that whole X-Men analogy. But anyway, Game Station 3 throws in a $5 super chat. Thanks for your help, you guys, for your support. You guys are wonderful. I really appreciate it. The fact that Zack Snyder is a big fan of Ayn Rand really explains a lot when it came to the questionable creative choices he made when making BVS. I've never heard that. I didn't realize that. That's kind of interesting. I would have to look into that. It just the notion that philosophy I had to do with the decisions that characters in that movie are making. I can totally see that. Pandora, $2 super chat. Please review season 2 of Telltale Batman. Yeah, I want to get to that soon. Eric and I have not had time to get together and do the rest of season 1 with the stream, or excuse me, with the gameplay we were doing. I might go ahead and just stream that on my own at some point if we can't manage to with our schedules put that together. I know that's not ideal and great because it was the interaction with us. It was fun. We were having a good time with that. But if it takes too long, I may stream that and then stream season 2 by myself. But now that I'm doing the streaming thing, I'll probably be doing more of that kind of thing with video games, doing more sampling things and stuff. Daniel Davis says that Snyder's making the Fountainhead. Is that actually happening? Or are you talking about Snyder? Or are you talking about somebody else? I don't know. Interesting. Okay, let's answer some more questions, folks. William Purcell, Cap, do you think Batman is truly capable of being happy between his numerous issues and obsessions? Yeah, not really. That's a character that kind of is driven by inability to be happy, right? What he wants two things, and neither of them are attainable. One of which you can't have because you would have to go back in time and change reality, and the other you can't have because it's just not realistic and it's against human nature. Batman wants his parents back, and he remains at least my version of Batman, or the version of Batman I love the most. I think that kind of question is difficult because it's real broad sweeping, and there are a million different ways to do Batman, right? So I'm talking about kind of the most classic general vision of Batman that I can, but at the end of the day, we're all looking at that character in different ways, and we all have a favorite version, right? So I should put that caveat in there. That's kind of a in a way a loaded question because it's about a broader Batman, or maybe it ends up being about a really specific Batman. But anyway, so he is my Batman anyway. Is the Batman who remains that child, and never gets over his parents' death and refuses to ever get over his parents' death. By definition, that man cannot be happier. He can be happier, or cannot be happy. He can be happier than he was before. He can also enjoy being Batman to some degree, I think. He can derive some joy from it, and he has to find bits of happiness, or he would lose his humanity entirely, and we would have to worry that he might become a complete psychopath. So that's the thing that he can't have, and therefore he can't be happy. He also cannot rid Gotham and or the world of crime. He wants to make sure that what happened to his parents never happens to anyone else. That is impossible. He, like Superman, these characters have more in common than a lot of people, and including them much of the time, would want to admit. These two characters have to set an example before they can just straight up fix the world. Otherwise, they would be despotic dictators, and they would force their will on us, and once they're gone, we'll go back to the ways we were before, because if you don't set an example and people don't change their hearts and minds, we don't learn nothing. And then the big question ends up being, can we ever fully get past the things that make us incapable of making sure that what happened to Bruce Wayne never happens to anybody else. Scott McCall, $5 super chat. Do you think having comic book writers like Bendis writing the scripts for DC is a viable thing? Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've always wanted to see our great comic book writers be the folks that write scripts for these movies. And it doesn't have to only be them. It's not like there aren't talented people in Hollywood that can't write great superhero movies that have never written a comic book. But I've always wondered why we don't go more to our great talent in comic books. And it would be interesting to see Bendis do movies, because he's such a long form guy and he's so decompressed. And if that's the assignment, if you limit him, I'm sure he'll deliver a great script. But I wish Peter David was working on superhero movies. I wish Rick Remender were working on superhero movies. So yes, absolutely it is. Mohammed Anwar, $2.79 super chat. Will you ever return to Counting Crypto Freaks? You came in late, so I'll give this announcement one more time real quick. I am bringing Counting Crypto Freaks back. I'm doing it this week. It's coming out tomorrow. It's going to be in a different format. It's going to be a different thing. It's going to be looser. It's going to be off the cuff, and there's going to be a little bit of rambling, but it is the only way that I can make sure that the series finishes in a reasonable-esque amount of time and actually get through it episode to episode. I'm doing them as commentaries now, still counting the Crypto Freaks and other things, but I am going to be posting them as commentaries, and eventually might do polished written analysis on the seasons as overviews on Superhero Rewind, so that I can get my thoughts out in a more truncated for me, I guess. Those are real thorough, but a more concise and more well considered and clear idea. But if you want to just watch the series with me and hear my initial thoughts as I'm going back through the show, and some of those will change as I'm watching it, you can watch Counting Crypto Freaks now as a commentary series. I will say that I am preparing for that show. I'm not just watching it for the first time in 10 years. I'm watching it again. I'm taking notes. I'm doing the count, and then I'm watching it with you guys and talking over it. So it will be more prepared than some of my other commentaries, but it will be an off-the-cuff commentary series. And I'm starting right where I left off with Exodus, the last episode of season 2. So that drops tomorrow. and I certainly hope that you guys enjoy it. My habit Anwar also asks if I caught up on Young Justice. I have not. And that's because I'm working on Superhero Rewind, and I'm doing I'm going to be doing some TV overview and things like that for that show. So I don't know, unfortunately, outside of the request, the paid request, that I'm going to be able to do a lot more of that kind of thing, because there's just only so much time in the day, and I've got to do a lot of watching and taking notes for the written analysis, which is going pretty well, and people seem to be enjoying. So I want to focus on that, and I've got to make sure that I'm doing all these requests, which have also been really cool and going well. And so if there is a show that you want to hear my initial thoughts on, you can do a request, but I can't promise more than a pilot and the episode right after it, just because of time constraints. Donnie St. Pierre says, please don't give up on Gotham. I'll get back to it eventually. And I'm also considering way down the road, and this is getting ahead of myself most certainly, but I'm considering that if Counting Crypto Freaks as commentaries goes well, I might, when I finally finish with that, start a different series and just continue doing that kind of thing with different superhero shows. But realistically, Counting Crypto Freaks is going to take probably at least 4 years to finish, which is nuts. But it would be kind of overly saturated of me to post it more than once a week. Like I said, I've already recorded 3, and they're going pretty quickly. So if I focused on it real hard, I could get a whole bunch of those out. But I don't know that I want to do it like a mania and just post a million of them. I kind of want to just keep it as a weekly show until I'm finished with it. Random Reviewer has a $5 super chat. I watched your brief review of the first few episodes of Teen Wolf a few months ago, so I gave it a shot, and I'm really loving it. Thanks, Cap. Yeah, sure. I enjoyed what I saw of that, as I said in that review, and a lot of people still asking me to go back and watch Teen Wolf. I'm sorry I haven't done that yet. Malik Meyer sent me a bunch of that in the mail, and I keep saying I would like to get back to it and review some of it, and I just haven't, and I don't want to make any promises. This request thing has been going really well, but we've got 11 people right now asking for monthly requests, so that's like 5 or more a show, and I may even have to cap that off pretty soon if we get very many more. And so with those, plus all the other things that we review regularly, we always do a comic book, we always do a we usually do a new movie, that kind of thing. Again, just only so much time of the day. And it's also important to note that we are only 7 weeks away from my next child being born, and I will probably take at least a couple of weeks off right after that. But I will be right back into the thick of it after that. I just may not be able to post quite as often. At least some of this extra stuff we're doing, and I don't know how exactly that's going to affect the omnibus. So I'll more about that as it develops. I don't want to overwhelm myself, because obviously I'm going to have 3 kids in the house and one's an infant, and I've got to put that ahead of everything. And I'm sure everybody understands and appreciates that. Anthony Cabrera, $1.99 super chat. Thanks. Do you think Selena is the woman to marry Batman? I think that Tom King's is, maybe. I think he's making a good case for it, but I think it's a real. That's a real tough question. That's very much a depends kind of question. Everybody has their own take, writing wise, on who Selena is to Batman, and if she's a bad influence on him, or if he can turn her around, but it's not a good foundation for a relationship if the point is to save someone, nor if it's the point to change someone. And so generally speaking, I would say no, she's not. But they seem to be really kindred spirits in Tom King's Batman, and if she's not the one, there isn't one, I think, is the answer that I would make to that. Or that I would give to that, rather. Okay, thanks for the super chats, folks. Let me answer some more of these pre-posted questions that Robert has given me. James Quinn, hey Cap, longtime silent viewer. Well, thanks for finally speaking up. Good to hear from you. Big fan. If you were asked to write for DC Comics, what character would you be interested in taking on? Ambush Bug. Be the closest to the Tick I'd probably ever get. No, who would I want to write? I would want to write Birds of Prey. I really would. I love Oracle. I think it would be a lot of fun to try to write her. I love the dynamic of those ladies. I also would. I suck at riddles, but I love the Riddler, and so I would probably like take a couple months crash course on doing puzzles and things, and then if I could, you know, if I worked for DC and I could get them to greenlight this book and do either a miniseries or a monthly for the Riddler. But we're not in the status quo we were with him anymore, where that would have made sense. So it's not like it would ever happen. But I would, and it's not like me writing for DC would ever happen. But I would love to. I really wanted to see the ongoing back in the day, and it's weird to say that, but it's been like 8 years. Riddler as a private detective book where he's still kind of, he's morally ambiguous. He's right, you know, on the line of bad guy to villain, even much more so than Selena Kyle. But you know, so you keep him in that place, but he actually is trying to help people as a private detective, but it's more about him challenging himself than it actually is about helping anyone. I would love to write that. I don't know if I would have the knack for it, but that would have been really cool. That was back during Gotham City Sirens with what Paul Dini was doing with him, and yeah, we never got that, and I've always been kind of sad about that. So that's my answer to that. William Purcell, Cap, what is your favorite Justice League roster and why? Wow. I don't know if I have one. I have the same thing with Justice League that I do with Avengers, where there are certain characters that I really like on those teams that I like better with teams than on their own, like Martian Manhunter. And with Avengers, you know, like I mean, a lot of people like Ant-Man and like the Wasp and like in comics, Tony Stark. I mean, I've never really enjoyed reading Iron Man by himself that much. I mean, the Fraction stuff was great, but I even lost interest in that, not because it wasn't good, just because it wasn't my thing. And and I'm not a big team book guy, except for the X-Men for whatever reason. I think it's because the X-Men is very often comprised of a whole bunch of loners that all find common ground and come together out of necessity, but they don't really belong on a team. I think I enjoy that whole dynamic. I say that, I mean, like I said, I really like Birds of Prey, but it's a smaller team. I guess I like duos and trios more than I like big teams. So I confess I haven't read a whole ton of Justice League. I just, you know, see them crop up in a lot of stuff and watch some of the TV show and that sort of thing. So obviously I know things about the Justice League, but I haven't experienced like a real, you know, tight knit team that I loved. So, but you know, put a gun to my head, I guess it would be, you know, like I like the classic team, and it's got to have Martian Manhunter on it. But I think it's fun to throw in some kind of a wild card, you know, kind of a curveball, like you know, and to have a real fun comic relief character, as long as you know how to write that and not be obnoxious. You know, like throw Plastic Man on there and that kind of thing. It can be. I think it's really, and I like to put somebody on the team that isn't usually a member of Justice League, but makes a lot of sense to go there for at least some period. You know, like Green Arrow, and that kind of thing. But I don't have just like a perfect roster. Daniel Davis, thoughts on the new Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse trailer? Have you talked about it yet? I think it looks good, and the animation looks fantastic. Yeah, once again, we will talk about that on the Omnibus next week. But I was blown away by that last trailer. I'm very excited about it. It seems to be, at least the way they're advertising it, going against what I thought was going to happen, which was it's Spider-Verse, so Miles Morales will get totally buried. As I've always said, I don't love the Spider-Verse idea. I don't think you can do Spider-Man every different kind of way, which seems to be what that premise even is suggesting. I got excited about a Miles Morales universe, and then I was immediately deflated because it had to be an interdimensional thing. It looks like a character piece for Miles. It looks like this is his movie, and these other Spider characters are just supporting characters and just there. It looks like a potentially really thoughtful movie. It looks like it might take some time to stop and smell the roses. That's how it's being sold. It's like if you took that premise and you made I don't know, like an anime, like a Studio Ghibli film or something out of it. It is not at all what I was expecting, and it looks really sharp and punchy. And you're right, the animation is amazing. It looks almost rotoscoped, like mocapped. It looks live action, but not, and that's awesome. I think it has every potential to do pretty well. Maybe not huge numbers, but I think after that trailer, I think a lot more people are going to get enticed to see it than were before. And I love its affinity for comic books. It's the narration boxes and the word the onomatopoeia words on the screen and all of that. That is wonderful, and I'm stoked. It looks very unique and unlike anything we've really done with comic book stuff before. And I'm so glad it's going to be on the big screen. Super cool, yeah, and it is cel shaded, as Daniel Davis says. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, what else? Tank Gunner, Cap, what would be your perfect DC game idea? Mine is a Batman Beyond game or Justice League like the X-Men Legends series. Yeah, I've talked about this before, and we did a whole video once on how in the world you would do a Superman game. We kind of came up empty on what exactly that would look like. But yeah, so I don't think Superman is my answer, but I still want to see somebody finally make, you know, the definitive Superman game. I've said before that it would be cool to do like a Krypton exploration game where maybe you're uncovering a plot right before Krypton explodes, and you play up to the explosion. I think that would be cool. Maybe it could be like an action puzzle solving game, something like that. I think would be really neat. I'm surprised we haven't done a Green Arrow game yet. That would be kind of like the Arkham model, but it would be more about aiming and shooting and stuff. You know, do so almost like an FPS with it. I think that would be really cool. I think it could be cool to do an adult, you know, M-rated Suicide Squad game where you get to pick your character, and like there's a roster, and you can pick who you're going to be, and or maybe you play as several different characters, and the game kind of forces you to break the rules to do things that Amanda Waller doesn't want you to do, and you have to find. It's a stealth game, and you have to find clever ways to stay off the books and to keep her from knowing what you're doing, or your brain explodes, and then you play as a different character, and you move on from there. I think that could be really cool. There's a lot of great things to mine in DC, certainly. I've not read Justice League Avengers, Toby, so I can't talk about that right now. William Parcell, in some AU versions of Batman, have had his father revealed to be corrupt. What do you think of this idea and how it affects Batman? I liked it a lot in the Telltale game. I think I think more or less you can still have Batman end up as the same character, but maybe he ends up being a little bit more cynical. I don't need Batman's parents to be perfect. I also don't need them to be master manipulators and like totally evil, or they were, you know, responsible for a whole like shady underworld or whatever. I think you can take that way too far. But I do like the idea that Batman is in denial about how perfect his parents were, and like a lot of us, discovers that they were involved in, or rather, that they, you know, aren't perfect, and that they made some major mistakes, and maybe have them involved in some shady business dealings and things like that, and have Batman be in denial. I think it could actually make, in a way, it could almost make Batman less dark, if that makes any sense at all, where he realizes that we didn't destroy these perfect people. They were also a symptom of this larger problem, and so he does. And I think this is what Telltale was getting at, that Batman, everything he's doing is good and right and kind of noble in trying to bring Gotham back from the brink and help children not lose their parents, but the bigger issue at large is what Gotham has become as a city, and the idea that it corrupted his parents just like it corrupted everybody else makes perfect sense. Like, why were they unscathed? Why do they seem to be about the only people who were? You know, I think that makes a lot of sense. But when I say that, you know, he could end up being kind of less dark, it's just a dose of reality. It could almost make him it would make the motivation change, right? Where he's not still that little kid anymore, like I was suggesting earlier. A Batman whose parents were actually bad and he didn't know it could end up changing his motivation, where the reason he's doing it isn't because he's still that kid lashing out, but because it's what he should have been doing all along. It's like, or like it's what he should have done even if his parents didn't get killed. And so it's no longer even about that. So yeah, I think it's a good idea because he's a different Batman at that point. The more I'm thinking about it, I said he could wind up more or less the same. No, maybe he is kind of a different Batman. That's the kind of thing I had to talk out a little bit. DC Stranded, $2 super chat. Thanks a bunch. 3 kids. How many do you want? So originally we just wanted 2, but I have a very you only live once mentality. I've talked about this before, but I really want a daughter. I really want to experience being the father of a daughter. And we have decided not to find out what this next one is. And I guess we'll find out in a few weeks. And if it is not a girl, it is possible that we try one more time. Sarah and I have talked about this. Maybe not, probably not, but it could happen. If it is a girl, we definitely will stop at 3. So that's the deal there. Fatherhood agrees with me. I love being a dad. I really like homeschooling, and I'm finding that I like a lot of people in my house. I like having a full house. One thing that didn't agree with me early on about the stay-at-home dad thing was I'm a real outgoing, outspoken kind of person. I'm real extroverted, and I felt real cooped up in the house. And the more we fill the house up with people, the less I have that. So I don't mean to say that that Sarah and I just keep having children so that I don't go stir crazy, but it helps, and that is kind of a nice side effect. So anyway, G Stone says I seem like a good dad. I appreciate that. Thanks a bunch. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left. Let's answer a couple more. If there's anything that you really, really, really want to see me answer, and you don't mind helping out the channel, feel free to throw more super chats out, and I will make sure and prioritize those. Otherwise, I'm just going to answer a few more that's here. Connor says his neighbors growing up had 6 kids. Yeah, Sarah was the oldest of 6. That used to be a big giant number to me, and I've been involved with Sarah's family for so long that it just doesn't even feel that weird anymore. Oh, I need to mention, I should save this for the end, but I might forget about it. Tonight, I'm doing this just reminded me because Connor was in the comments and he usually makes it to these. I'm doing a hangout with Patreon. So if you are a patron, first come, first serve. I will begin at 7 o'clock, and I'll be there I'll open it up a few minutes early. First come, first serve. The first 9 people that get in can be in the Google Hangout. That's how many you can put in a Hangout. So it's all I can do, 9 people. And we're going to talk about just whatever topics people bring with them. So come armed with a topic. And if you want to become a patron in order to try to jump in there and hang out with me, and that's not like this where it's just comments that I'm reading. You'll physically be in the chat talking directly with me. If you're interested in that, patreon.com/geekvolution, just the $2 tier will give you access to that. Scott McCall, speaking of $2 super chat, favorite comic writer, mine is Bendis. Excuse me, 1 second here. Yeah, Greg Rucka is certainly up there. And then beyond that, as far as favorites, Tom Waltz most certainly is in my top 5 probably. I like Jason Aaron. I don't know that he's necessarily one of my favorites. I get or is my favorite. I guess I've got to say Brian K. Vaughan most certainly is in there, and I'm getting there with Morrison after Klaus most certainly. So there are a few. David Crabtree, favorite comic artist, continues to be and always will be Todd McFarlane. He is my favorite artist. He is my least favorite writer. I also love Santaluco so much. I'm also a big fan of Simon Kurdansky. And there are a few. Yeah. Dimitri J. Do you think it's fair to give solo movies to characters like Cyborg who have never had solo movies, while characters like Zatanna, Nightwing, Booster Gold, and Question haven't really been adapted? Yeah, I mean, because it makes sense to, with Cyborg specifically, it makes sense to introduce him someplace else first and then give him a movie, because then we don't have to make that whole movie about his origin. You don't have to do that anyway, but we can be pretty well, we could have been, if we thought that movie was still happening, because who knows if that actually ends up getting off the ground now. And I hope that guy gets to play Cyborg again, because I thought he was wonderful, and I thought he was one of the best things about Justice League. But with the initial idea anyway, it makes a lot of sense to introduce a character like that in the movies and then give him a movie. So I'm not going to complain that, oh, well, he already got to appear in a movie. How come these other characters aren't getting solo movies? Because we might have to sit through boring origin stuff, and also those just seem like almost like false equivalencies to me. I don't want to complain that somebody is getting their own movie when somebody else hasn't even been adapted yet. Maybe there's another place to introduce those characters, and maybe the way to introduce them isn't necessarily with their own movies. Hopefully that's the I'm reading that question correctly, and that's what you wanted me to talk about. James Hester, hey Cap, will there be any more Star Trek commentaries in the near future? Indeed, there will be. We just recorded Search for Spock a couple days ago, and that will come up probably Friday. I'm thinking Friday. Yeah, I was just thinking it's a little bit late now today. Yeah, that probably will come up Friday, but it will be very soon. What else? I am out of time. Let me answer a couple more real quick. This is tough. Loose Cox. Hey, Captain Logan, will you and Eric come back to D Space Babylon 59? I like the format you guys had, and I can wait. Sure, take all the time in the world. You have to do other things. Yeah, I know. I really, really want to do it. The problem is there wasn't enough interest in it, and it's been really, really hard to prioritize it. So Eric and I have continued watching Deep Space Nine. We're behind on Bab 5, but I've shown him a few more episodes of DS9, and we cannot figure out a format to make that happen in a reasonable amount of time. I don't want it to take Eric 7 years to watch Deep Space Nine. He's becoming more of a fan of Star Trek. He really wants to get through that stuff. He might run off without me at some point and start watching it on his own. And same thing with me with Bab 5. I mean, I want to finish that show. I don't want it to take 5-7 years to finish it. So I don't know what we're going to do about that. It was a really cool idea. And the reason it's happened this way is because Eric moved in with me and became the other main guy on the channel. And so it made a lot of sense, but it was all we did together. When we would just meet once a week and knock one out. It still would have taken longer than I would have wanted it to, but we could have gotten it out in a reasonable, number of years probably. And at this point, there's just too much else that people want to see us do, and also we're doing the request. So I thought about, I don't know, I considered suggesting that if we had specific requests for it, maybe we would do it. But I also don't want to set a precedent for that, because folks have asked me if I would do an entire season of something with a request, and I just don't have enough time in the day to watch everything. So I don't know if it's fair to say, well, yeah, we'll do it if somebody wants to help us make it a priority and give us money for it. I don't know. I don't like that. It's disingenuous, and that's why I haven't announced that. But at the same time, there are people who want that, and there have been people in the past who have specifically donated on Patreon to try to keep that show going, and we still just could not make that happen. So I'm really sorry, folks, that really like Deep Space Babylon 59. We want to do it. We just can't figure out how to without a time turner. So anyway, let me do maybe one more. Well, a couple more. Chewbacca's Lover wants to know if we're going to review Ultimates 2 on the next Omnibus. You said you weren't sure if you could get to it. Yeah, it'll be the one after that, probably, and we'll make that the featured book for Omnibus 14. Mario 500 now. I was referencing this question, Captain. Have you heard of a certain version of Superman the movie named Superman the Movie Extended Cut? Yeah, the Extended Cut is the one that I think is most available now and that people watch the most often. That's the one that put back and that's what Oliver and I did the commentary on. It puts back in the shot that I don't like of Lois riding the train when she's a kid and Clark shooting past her. I don't like that. That feels real prequel-y, Smallville kind of territory, like decades before Smallville. But anyway, folks, that's going to be it. I'm seeing lots more really cool questions, but I'm going to have to bid you farewell. Thanks for watching. Sure appreciate it. This is going to be the end of today's Captain Logan show, but I will see you again next Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Central Time. Once again, might see some more live content. I've been having a lot of fun streaming video games. We might do some of that a little bit later on, even today or tomorrow for the few people that might pop in and want to see it. So once again, if there are video games that you'd like to see us play, and that's mostly just a, pardon me, that's mostly just to hang out with you because we're doing that anyway. That's what Jason and I do for fun. So if we are broadcasting, you're wondering, hey, Captain Logan, how come you're not using this Geekvolution time to work on Superhero Rewind or to prepare for requested reviews and things like that? Well, it's because that's actually my fun time that I'm spending with my son, but we happen to also be broadcasting because my fun and my work are just so intertwined like this. It's crazy. Anyway, Jeffrey says it's the end of the chat as we know it, and I feel fine. Anyway, thanks again for watching, folks. Sure appreciate it. Tonight, Patreon chat, 7 o'clock. If you want to become a patron or if you already are a patron, check it out. I will be sending out a message to the patrons through the Patreon messagey system in order for you to know when that is, or to give you the link just before it starts, 5 minutes before 7 o'clock Central Time. Thanks again, folks. Sure appreciate it. I am Captain Logan, and I will see you again next week.